Jin-woo Park's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. The woman pushing the double stroller across Granville Street couldn't be her. It couldn't be Amara. But those eyes, even from 30 feet away, even in the dying light of a Vancouver evening, he'd know those eyes anywhere. And the two tiny faces peering out from beneath blankets, faces that looked impossibly, undeniably like his own reflection, staring back at him from 13 months into a past he thought he'd buried. Jin-woo? The light screen. Hannah's voice cut through the roaring in his ears. He blinked, foot heavy on the accelerator, and the black Mercedes S-Class surged forward. In the rearview mirror, Amara disappeared into the crowd outside the Pacific Center, oblivious to the fact that she'd just detonated a bomb in the carefully constructed world of Vancouver's most dangerous man. Jin-woo's throat felt tight. His chest refused to expand properly. Beside him, Hannah Choi, elegant, poised, wearing the diamond engagement ring he'd placed on her finger 3 weeks ago, continued talking about flower arrangements and venue bookings and all the trivial details of a wedding that suddenly felt like a noose tightening around his neck. "Are you even listening to me?" Hannah's perfectly manicured hand touched his arm. "You've been distracted all evening." "I'm fine," Jin-woo lied, his voice flat and controlled in the way he'd perfected over 2 decades of running the Baco clan. It was a good lie, believable. Hannah nodded and returned to her phone, scrolling through photos of wedding cakes while Jin-woo's mind replayed the same 3-second loop. Amara's profile, the stroller, those faces. The math was simple and devastating. 13 months since their breakup. Twins who looked about 3, maybe 4 months old. 9 months of pregnancy. The numbers aligned like bullets in a chamber. If you're wondering whether those children were his, whether the most powerful crime boss in Vancouver was about to have his entire world turned inside out by 2 babies he didn't know existed, then you need to hear what happened next. And can I ask you a very simple question? Where in the world are you watching from? It's truly amazing how God uses these stories to bring us together. This story is about what happens when a man who spent his entire life controlling everything discovers the one thing he can't control, can't threaten, can't negotiate with: his own blood. Now, let's continue.
The drive to Hannah's penthouse in Cole Harbor took 12 minutes. Jin-woo barely registered the route. His mind was elsewhere, calculating probabilities and implications the way he calculated risk in business deals. Hannah kissed his cheek before stepping out of the car, reminded him about dinner with her father on Thursday, and disappeared into the gleaming glass lobby of her building. Jin-woo waited until she was gone before pulling out his phone. Tae-min Kang answered on the second ring. "Boss? I need you to find someone." Jin-woo's voice was steady, betraying none of the chaos churning beneath his ribs. Quietly, no clan involvement. There was a pause. Tae-min had been Jin-woo's right hand since they were teenagers running protection rackets in East Van. He knew when his boss was operating off script. "Who are we looking for?" "Amara Johnson. Last known address was somewhere in Kitsilano, but that was over a year ago. Find out where she is now, what she's doing, everything." "This about the woman from before?" Tae-min's tone was carefully neutral. "The one you... just find her." Jin-woo ended the call and sat in the underground parking garage of Hannah's building, surrounded by luxury vehicles that cost more than most people made in 5 years. The air smelled like concrete and motor oil. Somewhere above him, Hannah was probably already on the phone with her mother, discussing seating charts and invitation calligraphy. Meanwhile, Jin-woo was unraveling. He pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars, trying to force his brain into the cold logic that had kept him alive in a business where mistakes got you killed. but logic required information, and right now all he had were questions that felt like hooks in his chest, pulling tighter with every breath. He drove home to his Yaletown penthouse, 37th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking False Creek. The space was immaculate, all clean lines and expensive minimalism, designed by an architect who charged obscene amounts to make rooms feel like museums. Jin-woo poured 3 fingers of Japanese whiskey into a crystal tumbler and stood at the window watching the city lights reflect off the dark water below. 13 months ago, he'd stood in this exact spot and told Amara that he couldn't give her what she wanted. She'd been crying, not dramatically, just quiet tears sliding down her face while she nodded like she'd expected it all along. They'd been together for 18 months, long enough for her to meet his mother during one of her rare visits from Seoul, long enough for Jin-woo to feel something he hadn't felt since he was a kid, before his father's funeral, before he inherited the Baeko clan at 23 and learned that sentiment was a liability in his world. "I want a family, Jin-woo," she'd said that night, her voice soft but firm. "I want kids, a house, a life that isn't about looking over my shoulder or wondering if you're going to come home."
He'd been honest with her, brutally so. "My life doesn't have room for that. The clan comes first. It has to. You knew that from the beginning. I thought maybe you'd change your mind." "I won't." She'd taken off the bracelet he'd given her, white gold, simple, expensive, and placed it on the coffee table. "Then I can't stay. I won't spend years waiting for you to figure out what actually matters." He'd let her go, watched her walk out of his penthouse and his life, because keeping her meant changing everything, and Jin-woo Park didn't change. He adapted, he strategized, he controlled, but he didn't change. Except now, standing at his window with whiskey burning his throat, he wondered if she'd been carrying his children when she left, if she'd known, if she'd made the decision to cut him out before he could reject them the way he'd rejected the future she wanted. The thought made him feel something unfamiliar and deeply uncomfortable, shame mixed with a rage that had no clear target. His phone buzzed, a text from Tae-min. "Got a guy, discreet, should have info in 48 hours. Jin-woo didn't respond. He finished his drink and poured another, then spent the next 3 hours sitting in the dark, running scenarios in his head like he was planning a territorial negotiation. But this wasn't business. This was something else entirely, something that made his carefully constructed control feel like tissue paper in a storm. If those children were his, and every instinct he'd honed over 40 years of reading people and situations told him they were, then Amara had made a choice. She'd decided he didn't deserve to know, that he'd be a bad father, or an absent one, or worse. And the truly gutting part was that she was probably right. What did Jin-woo Park know about being a father beyond the example his own had set? His father had been a ghost, always absent for clan business, showing up to family dinners like a stranger visiting his own home. Jin-woo's strongest childhood memory was his mother crying alone in the kitchen, while his father brokered deals and settled disputes and built the empire that Jin-woo now ran. He'd become exactly what he'd hated. The realization sat in his stomach like swallowed glass. The next 2 days were a masterclass in compartmentalization. Jin-woo attended clan meetings, reviewed quarterly earnings from their legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate holdings, import operations, and had dinner with Hana's father, a prominent city councilman who saw Jin-woo as a useful connection and Hana as a strategic daughter. The whole meal was performance. Jin-woo smiled at the right moments, discussed market trends and development opportunities, and pretended the foundation of his life wasn't cracking beneath him. Hana noticed something was off. "You've been distant," she said as they left the restaurant, her arm linked through his. "Is it the wedding? Because if you're having second thoughts—" "I'm not," Jin-woo said automatically, another lie. He was drowning in second thoughts, third thoughts, thoughts that spiraled into questions he couldn't answer. But he kissed Hana's temple and drove her home and maintained the facade because that's what he did. Control the narrative, manage the image, never let them see you bleed. On the third day, Raymond Torres walked into Jin-woo's private office in a nondescript building in Gastown that served as the legitimate front for Baco operations. Torres was a former RCMP detective turned private investigator, someone Jin-woo had used before for sensitive matters. He was expensive, thorough, and most importantly, silent. Torres dropped a manila folder on Jin-woo's desk. Everything you asked for. Jin-woo didn't open it immediately. For a strange, suspended moment, he wanted to tell Torres to take it back, to let the uncertainty persist just a little longer. But that was cowardice, and whatever else Jin-woo Park might be, he wasn't a coward. He opened the folder. Photographs, documents, a complete dossier on Amara Johnson's life for the past 13 months. She lived in East Vancouver now, a modest apartment on Commercial Drive. 2-bedroom, rent $1,200 a month, which was cheap for Vancouver, but probably still a stretch on her income. She worked as a freelance brand consultant, mostly remote work, irregular hours, irregular pay. The twins were named Micah James Johnson and Zara Grace Johnson, born 4 months ago at Vancouver General. No child support filings, no court documents, nothing. Nothing that connected Jin-woo to them in any legal or official capacity. But the photographs told a different story. There was Amara pushing the stroller through Trout Lake Park. There were the twins, one in blue, one in pink, their faces clear in the close-up shots Torres had taken. Micah had Jin-woo's nose, the same strong bridge, the same slight asymmetry. Zara had his eyes, dark and wide-set, with the same intense gaze that Jin-woo saw every morning in the mirror. DNA would confirm it, Torres said, his tone professional and detached, but based on timeline and physical resemblance, probability is above 90%.
Jin-woo stared at the photograph of his daughter, and she was his daughter. He knew it with a certainty that bypassed logic and went straight to something primal, staring directly at the camera with an expression that looked suspicious and slightly annoyed. 4 months old, and already she looked like she didn't trust the world. Jin-woo felt something crack open in his chest, something he didn't have words for. "She's been managing alone," Torres continued. "Daycare costs eat most of her income. She's behind on utilities twice in the past 3 months. No family support that I could find. Her parents are in Toronto, minimal contact. She's isolated, struggling." Jin-woo closed the folder. His hands were steady. His voice was steady. Everything about him was steady except the roaring chaos inside his skull. "Thank you. Invoice the usual account." Torres left. Jin-woo sat alone in his office, surrounded by the trappings of power, expensive furniture, original artwork, windows overlooking the historic brick buildings of Gastown, and felt utterly powerless. Tae-min came in without knocking, took one look at Jin-woo's face, and closed the door behind him. "It's bad," Tae-min said, not a question. "They're mine." Jin-woo's voice came out rougher than intended. "The twins, they're mine." Tae-min was silent for a long moment, processing. Then, "Does she know you know?" "No." "What are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? The only question that mattered. Jin-woo could walk away, send money anonymously, ensure Amara and the children were financially secure, and never disrupt the life she'd built without him. It would be the smart play, the safe play. He was engaged to Hana Choi, daughter of political influence and social connections that opened doors for Bayako's expansion into legitimate markets. Walking away from that to claim children with an ex-girlfriend would be strategically disastrous. But every time Jin-woo closed his eyes, he saw Zara's suspicious little face staring at him from a photograph. He saw Micah's tiny fist curled against a blanket, the same way Jin-woo's own hand curled when he slept. These weren't abstract concepts or strategic complications. They were his children, his blood, growing up without him, without even knowing he existed. "I'm going to see her," Jin-woo said. Taemin's expression shifted to concern. "Boss, think about this. You've got the Choi wedding in 6 weeks. The Portland expansion depends on maintaining that alliance. If you blow this up—" "I'm going to see her," Jin-woo repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Tomorrow."
He didn't sleep that night. Just lay in his too large bed in his too quiet penthouse, staring at the ceiling and trying to imagine what he'd say. How do you start that conversation? How do you show up in someone's life after they've explicitly cut you out and demand a place you'd previously rejected? By 5 a.m., Jin-woo gave up on sleep and went to the gym in his building, pounding the heavy bag until his knuckles were raw and his shoulders burned, trying to hit his way to clarity. At 2 p.m. the next day, Jin-woo stood outside apartment 12 at 2847 Commercial Drive. The building was old, probably 1970s construction, with faded siding and a front door that didn't quite close properly. He could hear noise from other units, a crying baby somewhere above, a television too loud to the left. This was Amara's world now. This was where his children lived. Jin-woo felt rage building in his chest, not at her, but at himself, at the choices that had led here. He knocked. 30 seconds of silence, then footsteps. The door opened 6 inches, security chain still engaged, and there was Amara. She looked exhausted, beautiful still, always beautiful, but worn thin in a way that made Jin-woo's chest hurt. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore old jeans and a stained t-shirt. Her eyes widened when she saw him, and a whole cascade of emotions crossed her face too quickly to parse. Shock, fear, anger, something else he couldn't name. "Jin-woo." His name came out like an accusation. "No, we don't." She moved to close the door, but Jin-woo's hand shot out, holding it open, not forcefully, just firmly. "Amara, please." Something in his voice must have registered because she hesitated, studying his face like she was trying to read a language she'd forgotten. Behind her, Jin-woo could hear small sounds, babies making those incoherent noises that babies make. His pulse hammered in his throat. 5 minutes, Amara said finally. She unhooked the chain and opened the door wide enough for him to enter. The apartment was small and cluttered in the way spaces get when there's too much life happening and not enough time to manage it. Baby supplies everywhere, bottles drying on the counter, diapers stacked on a shelf, a playmat on the living room floor. And there, in matching bouncer seats, were Micah and Zara, awake, alert, staring at Jin-woo with the intense focus that babies sometimes have, like they're trying to figure out if you're a threat or just another confusing piece of the world. Jin-woo couldn't breathe. They were real, not photographs, not abstract concepts, but actual tiny human beings with his DNA woven into every cell. Micah was bigger, broader through the shoulders, even at 4 months old. Zara was smaller, more delicate, but there was something fierce in her expression that reminded Jin-woo of his mother. "Say what you came to say." Amara's voice was hard, defensive. She positioned herself between Jin-woo and the babies, a physical barrier.
Jin-woo dragged his gaze away from his children and looked at the woman he'd loved and lost and apparently damaged more deeply than he'd realized. "Are they mine? You need to leave. Amara, are they mine? Does it matter?" Her voice cracked slightly, the hardness fracturing. "You made your position clear, Jin-woo. No family, no children, no future beyond what you already had. So I made my choice. You should have told me.
The laugh that came out of her was bitter and sharp. Told you what? That I was pregnant? So you could what? Offer me money to make it go away? Send your lawyer with a non-disclosure agreement? I know your world, Jin-woo. I know how inconvenient this would be for you. That's not fair. Fair? Amara's eyes flashed with something hot and dangerous. You want to talk about fair? I've been doing this alone for 13 months. Alone. Pregnancy alone. Birth alone. Every sleepless night. Every medical appointment. Every moment of terror wondering if I'm doing it right. Alone. Because you were very clear about what you wanted, and it wasn't this. I had a right to know. You had a right to the truth you asked for. You said no children. I gave you exactly what you wanted, a life without this complication. Jin-woo felt his control fraying. They're my children, Amara. They're my children. She stepped closer, voice dropping to something fierce and protective. I carried them. I birthed them. I feed them and change them and love them. You're just the DNA donor who happened to cross a street at the wrong time. Behind her, Micah started crying, a thin wail that immediately triggered Zara to join in. Amara turned away from Jin-woo, moving to the bouncer seats with practiced efficiency. She scooped up Micah first, settling him against her shoulder with one hand, while reaching for Zara with the other. The movement was so automatic, so competent, that Jin-woo felt like he was watching something he'd never be able to learn. She belonged here in a way he never would. But he stepped closer anyway, driven by something he didn't understand. Let me help. I don't need your help. You're behind on utilities. Your rent is too high for your income. You're drowning, Amara. She froze, and when she turned to look at him, the expression on her face was pure fury. You had me investigated? You had someone watching me? I needed to know. Get out. Her voice was shaking now, though whether from anger or exhaustion or both, Jin-woo couldn't tell. Get out of my home. Get out of our lives. You don't get to show up after all this time, and I want to be involved. The words came out harder than Jin-woo intended, almost desperate. I want to know them. I want to help.
Why? Amara shifted Micah to her other shoulder, the baby's cries subsiding to whimpers. Because your conscience finally caught up? Because you saw us and suddenly your priorities shifted? That's not good enough, Jin-woo. These aren't puppies you can visit when it's convenient. They're human beings who will need consistency and stability and a father who actually wants them, not one who showed up because he felt guilty. I do want them. You wanted a life without complications. I'm giving you exactly that. Consider this me being generous.
Jin-woo looked at Zara, still crying in her bouncer seat, her little face red with effort. Everything in him wanted to reach for her, to pick her up the way Amara held Micah, but he didn't know how. Didn't know the right way to support her head or hold her body. Didn't know anything except that watching his daughter cry while he stood uselessly nearby felt like failure on a fundamental level. "What do you want from me?" Amara asked, and she sounded so tired. "Seriously, Jin-woo, what do you actually want?" "To be their father." "You can't just decide that now. You don't get to opt in after opting out." "Then tell me what I have to do." Jin-woo met her eyes, and for once he wasn't calculating or strategizing. He was just asking. "Tell me what you need to believe I'm serious." Amara was quiet for a long moment, swaying slightly with Micah, her gaze moving between Jin-woo and Zara's upset little face. When she spoke, her voice was firm and clear. "If you're in, you're all in. Not part-time, not when it's convenient, not when it doesn't interfere with your business or your engagement or whatever other life you're building. You show up consistently, you learn, you help. And if you decide it's too hard or too inconvenient, you walk away now and never come back, because I won't let you break their hearts the way you—" She stopped herself, jaw tight.
I won't let you hurt them. I won't walk away. You don't know that. You don't know what this costs, what it takes. Then teach me. Amara studied his face for a long, suspended moment. Zara's cries had escalated, demanding attention. Finally, Amara shifted Micah to one arm, a movement that looked impossible but that she managed with exhausted grace, and bent to pick up Zara. But she stumbled slightly, overcorrected, and Jin-woo moved without thinking. His hands caught Zara before Amara could, lifting the tiny, angry baby with a carefulness that felt instinctive and terrifying. Zara weighed nothing, or maybe she weighed everything. Jin-woo held her awkwardly, supporting her head the way he'd seen Amara do, and stared down at his daughter's furious little face. She stopped crying for exactly 3 seconds, just long enough to study him with those dark, suspicious eyes, and then she resumed wailing with renewed vigor. "She hates me," Jin-woo said, something close to panic edging into his voice. "She doesn't know you," Amara's tone had softened fractionally. "And you're holding her wrong. Support her bottom more. Yes, like that. Now rock slightly. Babies like motion."
Jin-woo adjusted his grip, moving in small, swaying motions that felt ridiculous and inadequate. Zara's cries didn't stop, but they changed pitch slightly, became less urgent. He looked at Amara, this woman who'd somehow become competent at something completely foreign to both of them, and felt a rush of respect mixed with regret so sharp it hurt to breathe around. "I have conditions," Amara said finally, "if you're serious about this. Anything. Don't say that until you hear them. First, no clan business near my children. I don't care what you do or who you are out there, but in here, you're just a man learning to be a father. Second, you commit to a schedule and you keep it. If you say you'll be here Tuesday at 3 p.m., you're here at 3 p.m., not 3:15, not something came up. Third, no romantic expectations. We're not getting back together. This is about Micah and Zara, not us. Can you accept that?" Every word felt like a boundary being drawn, a wall being erected between who they'd been and who they were now. Jin-woo wanted to argue, to negotiate, to find the angle that would give him more leverage, but this wasn't a negotiation. This was an ultimatum from someone who held all the power because she held the only things that mattered. "I accept," Jin-woo said. "You have 48 hours to think about it, really think about it. Talk to your fiancé, talk to your business partner. Make sure this is what you want, because once you commit, I need you to actually commit. These babies deserve better than a father who treats them like an obligation." "Amara, 48 hours, Jin-woo, then decide." She took Zara from his arms, and the absence of that tiny weight felt like loss. Jin-woo stood in the cluttered living room, surrounded by evidence of a life he'd had no part in building, and tried to find words that would bridge the chasm between them. But Amara's expression was closed, protective, final. She'd said her piece, now she was waiting for him to leave. So he did, walked out of the apartment and down the stairs and back to his Mercedes, which looked obscenely expensive, parked on this street of modest cars and faded buildings. He sat behind the wheel for 10 minutes, hands shaking slightly, a tremor he couldn't control and didn't understand. Then he drove, not to his penthouse, but to Tae-min's apartment in Burnaby. Tae-min took one look at Jin-woo's face and poured them both whiskey. "That bad?" "They're mine." Jin-woo downed his drink and welcomed the burn. "She's been doing everything alone, struggling, and I'm about to marry Hana and expand into Portland like none of this exists." "What did she say?"
Jin-woo told him all of it. Amara's conditions, the 48-hour deadline, the way holding Zara had felt like staring directly at every choice he'd made and finding them all wanting. When he finished, Tae-min was quiet for a long moment. "You know what walking away from Hana means," Tae-min said finally. "The Choi family won't just be insulted, they'll be vindictive. That Portland deal is dead, maybe the Seattle connections too.
We're talking tens of millions in lost opportunity. I know. And the clan will question your judgment. Some of the older members already think you're too soft, too focused on legitimizing operations. This will look like weakness. I know that too. So what are you going to do? Jin-woo stared into his empty glass, seeing his own distorted reflection in the crystal. I'm going to visit my father's grave. Taemin didn't ask why, just nodded and refilled their glasses, and they sat in silence while Jin-woo tried to find a path forward that didn't feel like choosing between his entire identity and the two tiny humans who shared his blood. The next morning, Jin-woo drove to Mountain View Cemetery in Richmond. His father's grave was in the Korean section, surrounded by other stones with Hangul characters and faded photographs. Jin-woo hadn't visited in almost a year. He stood at the headstone, black granite, simple, expensive, and felt nothing. No grief, no connection, just a vague memory of a man who'd been more myth than father, always absent, always prioritizing clan business over the family carrying his name. Jin-woo's mother had died when he was 16, cancer. His father had missed most of her final weeks because of some territorial dispute with a Chinese gang in East Van. Jin-woo remembered sitting alone in the hospital while she faded, waiting for a father who showed up 3 hours after she'd already gone. His father had looked at him across her body and said, "You're Baiko now, act like it." So he had. For 22 years, Jin-woo had acted like it, built the clan into something more powerful and sophisticated than his father had ever managed, expanded into legitimate businesses, made alliances, accumulated wealth and influence, became exactly the man his father had demanded he become. And it had cost him everything that mattered. Standing at this grave, Jin-woo thought about Micah and Zara growing up with a ghost for a father, thought about them sitting somewhere in 20 years, visiting his grave, feeling the same hollow absence Jin-woo felt now. The pattern was right there, clear as broken glass. He could follow it, maintain power, lose his children, or he could break it. But breaking it meant losing everything he'd built. "You were a terrible father," Jin-woo said to the headstone. The words felt strange, spoken aloud, almost sacrilegious. "You chose the clan over us every time. Mom died alone because you couldn't be bothered to prioritize her. I grew up thinking that's what strength looked like, that's what being a man meant. But you were just a coward, hiding behind duty."
The grave didn't answer. Jin-woo hadn't expected it to, but saying the words out loud shifted something inside him, like a door opening onto a room he'd kept locked his entire adult life. "I'm not going to be you," Jin-woo continued. "I'm going to be better, even if it costs me everything, especially if it costs me everything." He left the cemetery feeling lighter and more terrified than he'd felt in years. By the time he'd pulled up to his penthouse, he knew what he had to do. The knowing didn't make it easier, but it made it clear. Jin-woo called Hana, asked her to meet him at Miku, the expensive Japanese restaurant where they'd had their first date. She arrived wearing Chanel and carrying a Birkin bag, every inch the sophisticated daughter of Vancouver's political elite. She smiled when she saw him, leaned in for a kiss that Jin-woo returned with guilt already churning in his stomach. They ordered, made small talk. Hana showed him fabric swatches for bridesmaids' dresses, and Jin-woo sat across from this beautiful, elegant woman who deserved honesty and felt like the worst kind of coward. "Hana," he said finally, interrupting her mid-sentence about floral centerpieces, "I need to tell you something." She must have heard it in his tone because her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" "I have children, twin babies, 4 months old, with someone before we met." The silence that followed felt like falling. Hana's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief,
hurt, and finally something hard and cold that Jin-woo recognized because he'd seen it in business rivals right before they went for the throat. "You what?" "I just found out, a few days ago. I didn't know she was pregnant when we broke up. She never told me." "And now you're telling me? 6 weeks before our wedding?" Hannah's voice was climbing, drawing attention from nearby tables. "You're telling me you have children with another woman?" "I'm sorry, I know the timing." "The timing?" She laughed, sharp and ugly. "The timing is that my father has invested millions in your Portland expansion based on this marriage. The timing is that I've spent 8 months planning a wedding. The timing is that everyone we know is already talking about us as a power couple, and you're sitting here telling me about illegitimate children?" "They're not illegitimate, they're mine." "Do you hear yourself? Do you understand what you're throwing away?" Jin-woo met her eyes, saw the genuine hurt beneath the anger, and felt like the worst kind of bastard. "I can't marry you, Hana, not when I have children who need a father." "So send them money, hire a nanny. You don't need to blow up your entire life for babies you didn't even know about last week." "They're my children." "They're a liability," Hannah's voice cracked. "You're choosing them over me, over us, over everything we could build together." "I have to." She stared at him for a long, awful moment. Then she pulled the engagement ring off her finger and dropped it into his water glass. The plop was small, but definitive. "My father will destroy you for this. He's been looking for ways to expand into your markets anyway. Now you've given him the perfect excuse." "I know." "And you're doing it anyway? For some woman and her bastards?" The word bastards landed like a slap. Jin-woo felt his jaw tighten, felt the old instinct to respond with threat and violence, but he swallowed it. "For my children, and the woman who's been raising them alone while I pretended to be a better man than my father." Hana stood, gathering her purse and coat with sharp, angry movements. "You're a fool, Jin-woo, and when this all falls apart, when she breaks your heart and your clan abandons you and you're left with nothing, don't come crawling back." She left. Jin-woo sat alone at the table, staring at his engagement ring floating in water, while other diners whispered and waitstaff pretended not to notice. He paid the bill with a black American Express card and walked out into the Vancouver evening feeling like he'd just set fire to his entire life. The fallout was immediate. Within 24 hours, Councilman Choi had polled his support for the Portland expansion. The $50 million deal collapsed. Other investors, nervous about Jin-woo's stability and judgment, started making cautious withdrawals from planned projects. The clan elders called an emergency meeting, which was never a good sign. Jin-woo stood before them in the private room above one of Back Ho's legitimate restaurants, facing men who'd known his father and grandfather, men who saw tradition as law and sentiment as weakness. There were 8 of them, gray-haired and stone-faced, representing the old guard that Jin-woo had been trying to modernize for years. "You abandoned your engagement," Elder Kim said, his Korean formal and accusatory. "You embarrassed the Choi family. You cost us millions in lost opportunities. For what? Children with a woman outside our community?" "For my children," Jin-woo replied in Korean, keeping his voice level. "My blood. That should matter more than any business deal. Your father never let personal matters interfere with clan business. My father was absent for my mother's death. I won't make his mistakes." "You call his dedication a mistake?" Another elder, Park, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "Your father built this clan into a force. You're tearing it apart for sentiment." "I'm building something sustainable," Jin-woo countered. "Legitimacy takes generational thinking. My children will inherit this clan. They deserve a father who's present for that." The debate went on for 2 hours. Some elders saw Jin-woo's point. Others called for his removal as head of operations. Tae-min stood beside Jin-woo the entire time, a silent show of support that probably cost him politically. In the end, they reached an uncomfortable compromise. Jin-woo would remain as nominal head, but day-to-day operations would shift more heavily to Tae-min and the council. It was a loss of power wrapped in the language of delegation. Jin-woo accepted it because he had no choice. That night he called Amara. "It's been 48 hours, he said when she answered. "I'm in, completely. Whatever you need from me, I'm here." There was a long pause. He could hear babies crying in the background, that same chaos he'd witnessed in her apartment. "You're sure?" "I ended my engagement. I restructured clan operations. I'm sure." Another pause, then quieter. "What about your fiancée?" "She threw the ring in my water glass, and her father is trying to destroy my business relationships. But I'm free, and I'm asking you to let me prove I can do this." Jin-woo. Amara sounded exhausted and wary, and maybe, possibly, the tiniest bit hopeful. "This isn't going to be easy. I know. You're going to fail at it a lot. You're going to feel incompetent and frustrated, and there will be days when you wonder why you chose this. I know that too." "Okay," she took a shaky breath. "Okay, come over tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll start with the basics."
Jin-woo arrived at Amara's apartment at 9:45 a.m., early because punctuality was the one thing he knew how to control. She answered the door looking less defensive than before, though still guarded. The apartment was quieter, both babies asleep in a bassinet, miracle of miracles. Amara gestured him inside and immediately started listing rules like she'd rehearsed them. No expensive guilt gifts. No showing up with a designer crib when what I need is diapers and formula. No trying to fix everything with money. Understood. You're here to learn, not take over. I've been doing this for 4 months. I know what I'm doing. You don't. So when I tell you something, you listen. Okay. And if you're going to be here, you're going to actually be here. Not on your phone dealing with business, not mentally somewhere else. Present. Jin-woo nodded, feeling like a student receiving instructions from a master. Amara studied him for a moment, then sighed and moved to a changing table stacked with supplies. First lesson, diaper changing. Watch. She woke Zara with practiced gentleness and demonstrated the process. Wipes, clean diaper, the specific way to fasten the tabs so it doesn't leak. It looked simple when she did it. Then she handed Jin-woo a very awake, very suspicious Zara and said, "Your turn." Jin-woo had negotiated with rival gang leaders, had stared down police raids, had made decisions that affected hundreds of lives and millions of dollars. But holding his tiny daughter while trying to remove a dirty diaper made him feel more incompetent than anything in his adult life. His hands were too big, too rough. Zara squirmed and complained. The wipes felt flimsy and inadequate. "Support her head," Jin-woo instructed. "No, your other hand. Wipe front to back, Jin-woo. That's important for girls. Now the new diaper goes under, tabs in back. Fasten it snug but not tight." It took him 4 tries and Amara's intervention twice, but eventually Zara was clean and diapered and staring at Jin-woo with what he chose to interpret as slightly less suspicion than before. Amara nodded approval. "Not terrible, you'll get faster." They spent the next 2 hours on basics: how to prepare formula at the right temperature, how to burp a baby, how to hold them so they felt secure. Micah was more forgiving than Zara, settling into Jin-woo's arms with less complaint, but he also spit up on Jin-woo's expensive shirt. Hugo Boss probably ruined, and Jin-woo found he didn't care. Amara laughed. An actual, genuine laugh, and for a moment the tension between them softened. "Welcome to parenthood," she said, handing him a burp cloth. "Your clothes are never truly safe again."
Jin-woo looked down at his son, at the milk-drunk contentment on Micah's face, and felt something shift in his chest. This was real. Not abstract or theoretical. Real. He was someone's father. That meant something. It had to mean something. Over the following weeks, Jin-woo learned. He showed up every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m., exactly as promised. He learned that Micah liked to be rocked side to side, but Zara preferred front-to-back bouncing, that bottles had to be tested on your wrist to check temperature, that babies have an uncanny ability to time their diaper blowouts for maximum inconvenience. He learned that sleep deprivation was real and brutal, that Amara's exhaustion was a permanent state, and that competence came in tiny increments.
He hired a part-time nanny after consulting Amara after she'd initially refused until exhaustion won out over pride. The nanny's salary came from Jin-woo's personal accounts, not Becco money. He wanted that separation clear in his own mind, if nowhere else. He enrolled in a parenting class at the community center, where he was the only visibly tattooed man and definitely the only crime boss learning about infant CPR. The instructor kept giving him nervous looks. The other parents gave him a wide berth. But Jin-woo learned, practiced on a dummy how to clear an airway, how to do chest compressions on something so small and fragile it made his hands shake, took notes, brought the notes to Amara, who read them and nodded and didn't say anything about the fact that he was trying so hard it was almost embarrassing. 2 months in, Jin-woo arrived at the apartment to find Micah screaming, not normal crying, but the sustained, panicked wailing that meant something was wrong. Amara was near tears herself, holding Micah against her shoulder while he arched his back and screamed. "What's wrong?" Jin-woo asked, alarm spiking his pulse. "I don't know. He's been like this for an hour. I've tried feeding him, changing him, everything. I think something's wrong, but I don't know what." Jin-woo took Micah, felt his little body rigid with discomfort. Has he eaten? He won't take the bottle. When did he last have a bowel movement? Amara blinked. I don't know. Maybe yesterday morning? Jin-woo remembered something from his parenting class, flipped through his mental notes. Could be constipation. Instructor said sometimes if they're backed up, they get like this. What do we do? Warm bath, gentle belly massage. There's a technique. Let me try. They moved to the bathroom, ran warm water, and Jin-woo carefully lowered Micah into the small tub while Amara supported his head. The warm water helped almost immediately. Micah's screaming reduced to whimpering. Jin-woo used his fingers to gently massage Micah's belly in circular motions, the way the instructor had demonstrated. 5 minutes later, nature took its course, dramatically, and Micah let out a sigh that sounded genuinely relieved. "Ah, thank God," Amara breathed, half laughing. "You figured it out." "I took notes," Jin-woo said, feeling absurdly proud of himself for remembering something useful. They cleaned up Micah, got him into fresh clothes, and watched him fall asleep almost instantly, exhausted from his ordeal. Amara sat on the couch, staring at Jin-woo with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What?" asked Jin-woo. "You took notes in a parenting class." "I wanted to know what I was doing." Jin-woo Park, head of the Becco clan, sitting in a community center learning infant CPR. "Yes?" She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes. "You're really trying." "I told you I would." "People say things. You're actually doing it."
Something in her tone made Jin-woo's chest feel tight. He sat beside her, careful to maintain distance, respecting her boundaries, and said quietly, "I know I can't fix the past, can't undo choosing wrong, but I can choose right now. That has to count for something." Amara looked at him for a long moment, and Jin-woo saw her walls starting to crack just slightly. "It does count. I'm just scared to trust it." "That's fair." They sat in silence, watching their children sleep, and for the first time since Jin-woo had discovered they existed, the apartment didn't feel like enemy territory. It felt like something else, something that might eventually become home. But Jin-woo's business life was unraveling. The Ong Nyong group, a rival organization that had been quietly building power in Richmond, saw the chaos around Jin-woo's leadership as opportunity. They started pushing into Baiko territory near the port, challenging shipping routes and protection agreements that had been established for years. The old Jin-woo would have responded with immediate violence, a show of force to re-establish dominance. The new Jin-woo, the one who went to parenting classes and changed diapers, hesitated. "They're testing you," Taemin said, during an emergency meeting. "Every day we don't respond is a day they think you've gone soft." "How many people get hurt if we respond the old way?" asked Jin-woo. "Does it matter?" "Yes." Taemin stared. "Boss, with respect, that's not how this works. They push, we push back harder. That's the only language they understand." "Then we teach them a new language." Jin-woo called for a meeting with Ong Young's leadership. Neutral ground, no weapons, just negotiation. His own people thought he was insane. But Jin-woo had been watching his children for 2 months, learning how much of parenting was negotiation and compromise. Maybe the same principles applied elsewhere. The meeting happened in a private room at a hotel in Burnaby. Ong Young brought their second-in-command, a man named Lee who had a reputation for brutality. Jin-woo brought Taemin and a proposal. Shared profits on the disputed shipping routes. Split the territory, split the income, avoid bloodshed. Lee laughed in his face. "You've gotten weak, Park. Everyone knows it. You abandoned your fiancée for some black woman's bastards. You're not the man your father was." Jin-woo felt the old rage flare, the instinct for violence that had kept him alive in this business. But he thought about Micah and Zara, about the kind of world he wanted them to inherit. He kept his voice level. "My father ruled through fear and died alone. I'm building something different. You can be part of it, or you can keep pushing and find out that I haven't gotten weak, I've gotten smarter." That a threat? It's a business proposal. 60-40 split on the shipping routes. You get 40% of something instead of risking everything for a war you might not win. We both profit, no one dies. Think about it. Jin-woo stood and left. Taemin followed. In the car, Taemin said, "They're going to see that as weakness. Maybe, or maybe they'll see it as strength."
3 days later, Lee called back. They accepted the deal. 60-40, shared territory, no violence. Word spread through Vancouver's underworld that Jin-woo Park had negotiated instead of fighting, and opinions were split. Some saw it as evolution, others saw it as the beginning of the end. But Jin-woo had other priorities. He had managed to secure a meeting with potential investors for a waterfront development project, $35 million in legitimate real estate, the kind of deal that would shift Baiko further toward legitimate operations. The meeting was critical, especially after losing the Portland expansion. The investors were a consortium from Hong Kong, sophisticated money looking for Vancouver opportunities. They'd heard about the broken engagement, the clan leadership questions. Jin-woo knew he was walking into the meeting with a damaged reputation. He could lie, spin it, present the polished version of events that maintained his image, or he could tell the truth. He chose truth. "Gentlemen," Jin-woo began, standing at the head of a conference table with a view of False Creek, "I know you've heard things about my recent personal decisions. Rather than pretend they didn't happen, I want to address them directly. 6 months ago, I discovered I'm a father. Twin babies I didn't know existed. I made the choice to prioritize those children over a strategic marriage and some business opportunities. That choice cost me tens of millions in deals and damaged some important relationships." The lead investor, a man named Chen, raised an eyebrow. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because I want you to understand what drives my decision-making now. I'm building something sustainable, something my children will inherit. That means thinking long-term, thinking about legacy beyond profit margins. This waterfront development isn't just a real estate play. It's about creating something that lasts, something I can be proud to pass down. Sentiment is expensive in business. So is short-term thinking. You're looking at Vancouver for long-term growth. So am I. But I'm also looking at it as the place my children will grow up. I want to build something that makes their city better, not just more profitable.
It was a gamble. Jin-woo watched the investors exchange looks, waited for them to stand up and leave. Instead, Chen leaned back in his chair and smiled slightly. That's an interesting pitch. Most people in your position would try to hide the personal mess. You're owning it. I'm tired of hiding. They asked questions about project timelines, ROI projections, permits, and zoning. Jin-woo answered with the same thoroughness he'd brought to learning how to burp a baby. Detailed, prepared, honest about challenges. 2 hours later, they shook hands on a deal pending final due diligence. $35 million. Proof that honesty could work, at least sometimes. Jin-woo called Amara from the car. The deal went through. That's good? She sounded confused about why he was telling her. I told them about Micah and Zara, about choosing to be their father, used it as part of my pitch. There was silence. Then, you did? Turns out honesty is marketable. Who knew? She laughed, and the sound made something in Jin-woo's chest feel lighter. I'm proud of you. The words hit harder than expected. When was the last time someone had said that to him? His father never had. Hannah certainly hadn't. But Amara, who had every reason to doubt him, sounded like she meant it. Thank you, Jin-woo said quietly. Are you coming by tomorrow? Is that okay? Zara learned to roll over. I thought you might want to see. I'll be there. The months accumulated. Jin-woo's schedule became routine. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with the twins. Tuesdays and Thursdays for business. Weekends split between both. He learned Micah's giggle, which sounded like bubbles popping. Learned that Zara only napped if you held her and walked in continuous motion, which was exhausting but also intimate in a way Jin-woo had never experienced. He learned that Amara liked her coffee with cream and no sugar, that she hummed when she cooked, that she still had nightmares sometimes and woke up checking on the babies, even though they were fine.
They didn't talk about their past relationship, kept conversations focused on Micah and Zara, on logistics and schedules. But proximity bred familiarity, and familiarity bred something softer. Jin-woo started noticing small things, the way Amara twisted her hair when she was thinking, the half smile she got when Micah did something cute, the exhaustion that never quite left her eyes but seemed less heavy when Jin-woo was there to share the load. 6 months in, Amara accepted a job offer, brand director for a Vancouver tech startup. Good salary, flexible hours, room for growth. She was nervous about balancing work and childcare, but Jin-woo adjusted his schedule to cover the gaps, hired a better nanny, someone with actual qualifications instead of just availability. They became a team, coordinating handoffs and doctor appointments and sleepless nights like partners in a venture that mattered more than any business deal. The twins' first birthday approached. Jin-woo and Amara planned it together, sitting at her small kitchen table with notebooks and ideas. They decided on Stanley Park, a picnic area with views of the mountains, simple and outdoors and perfect for 1-year-olds who wouldn't remember it anyway. But Jin-woo would remember. He wanted it to be right. Should we invite people? Amara asked, or keep it small? Your parents? She hesitated. They're in Toronto. They don't really... I haven't told them much about you. Because I'm Korean or because I'm me? Both and neither. It's complicated. Jin-woo reached across the table and took her hand before he could overthink it. Invite them. Let them meet their grandchildren. Let them meet me. If they don't approve, at least we tried. Amara's fingers tightened around his. You keep surprising me.
Good surprising or bad surprising? I'm still figuring that out. The party was small but meaningful. Amara's parents flew in from Toronto, her father a stoic man who worked in manufacturing, her mother a nurse with a warm smile and sharp eyes that assessed Jin-woo like a threat. Tae-min showed up with gifts so oversized they were ridiculous, stuffed animals bigger than the twins themselves. Jin-woo's mother flew in from Seoul, meeting her grandchildren for the first time and crying so hard she could barely speak.
Jin-woo watched his mother hold Micah and Zara, watched her face transform with joy he hadn't seen since before his father died, and felt validated in choices that had cost him so much. Amara's parents were cordial but distant, clearly uncertain about this tattooed Korean man their daughter had somehow ended up co-parenting with. But they watched him change diapers and chase Micah through the grass and hold Zara while singing softly in Korean, and he saw their expressions soften slightly. At one point, Amara's mother pulled her aside. Jin-woo watched from a distance, couldn't hear the conversation, but saw Amara nodding, saw her mother's hand on her shoulder. Later, when guests were leaving, Amara's mother approached Jin-woo. "You're trying," she said, not unkindly. "That matters. But if you hurt my daughter or those babies, I'll make your life hell. Understood?" "Understood," Jin-woo said, respecting her directness. "I won't. See that you don't." After everyone left, Jin-woo and Amara cleaned up the park together while the twins napped in their stroller. They worked in comfortable silence, gathering discarded wrapping paper and food containers. When the space was clean, they sat on a bench watching the mountains turn orange with sunset. "Good day," Amara said softly. "Yeah, good day. Your mother is wonderful. I can see where you get your stubbornness." Jin-woo smiled. "She likes you. Told me in Korean that I'd be an idiot to let you go twice." "Did she now?" "She's not subtle." Amara was quiet for a moment, then, "Jin-woo, I've been thinking about living arrangements." His stomach dropped. "You want me to stop coming around?" "What? No, the opposite. This apartment is too small. The twins are getting bigger, more active. I can afford something better now with the new job, but I was thinking—" She took a breath. "There's a duplex for sale in Kitsilano. 2 separate units but shared common areas. Separate entrances, separate living spaces, but close enough that we could actually co-parent instead of just coordinating schedules. You want to live near me?" "I want the twins to have stability. I want them to have you present without the weird back and forth of who's on duty when. And honestly," she looked at him, vulnerable in a way she hadn't let herself be since he'd shown up at her door 6 months ago, "I think we're better when we're together, as co-parents, as whatever we are." Jin-woo felt like he was standing at a precipice. He could make a joke, deflect, keep things safe and undefined, or he could be honest. "I'd like that," he said. "The duplex, being closer, figuring out whatever we are." "This doesn't mean we're together," Amara clarified quickly. "I'm not ready for that. Maybe I won't ever be." "I know. But it also doesn't mean we're not. It just means we're trying." "I can live with trying." They bought the duplex. Jin-woo paid the majority. Amara insisted on contributing monthly, and they moved in with a combination of excitement and terror. Separate spaces meant boundaries, but shared backyard meant dinners together, mornings with coffee while the twins played on the grass, evenings when bedtime routines flowed between units without the barrier of distance. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt something. Not what they'd had before, that was gone, broken by choices and time, but something new, something built on shared purpose and mutual respect and the slow accumulation of trust that came from showing up day after day, even when it was hard. Jin-woo continued restructuring Baeko operations. Tae-min took more leadership, handled the day-to-day decisions, while Jin-woo focused on legitimate expansion and strategic planning. Productivity actually increased 23% over 6 months because delegation turned out to be effective when you delegated to competent people.
Some of the older clan members still grumbled, but results were hard to argue with. The Eungyong deal held. No violence, steady profits, proof that negotiation could work. Other organizations took note. Jin-woo's reputation shifted from feared enforcer to strategic negotiator, and surprisingly, that brought more opportunities than threats. 2 years after that Crosswalk encounter, Jin-woo sat in his backyard, their backyard, watching Micah and Zara chase each other through the grass. They were talking now, full sentences, personalities emerging. Micah was careful and thoughtful, Zara was bold and opinionated, and both of them called Jin-woo Appa with the casual certainty of children who'd never known a world where he wasn't there.
Amara stepped out from her side of the duplex carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She handed one to Jin-woo and sat beside him on the porch steps, close enough that their shoulders touched. They didn't do this often, the casual physical closeness, but when they did, it felt natural instead of forced. "What are you thinking about?" Amara asked. "How different everything is. How 2 years ago I would have considered this life impossible." "Regret it?" "Not even a little." He meant it. "You?" "I regret the struggling alone part, but not the outcome." She watched the twins, smiled that half-smile Jin-woo had come to recognize as contentment. "They're good kids." "We're doing okay?" "Yeah, we're doing okay." Zara fell, scraped her knee, and immediately started crying. Both Jin-woo and Amara moved simultaneously, but Jin-woo was closer. He scooped up his daughter, examined the minor injury, murmured soothing words in Korean while she hiccuped against his shoulder. Amara retrieved the first aid kit, they kept one in both units, and together they cleaned the scrape, applied a band-aid, and sent Zara back to playing within 3 minutes. "We've gotten good at this," Amara observed. "Teamwork." More than that. She looked at him with an expression Jin-woo couldn't quite read. "Jin-woo, I think I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To try. Actually try. Not just co-parenting in separate spaces, but us." Jin-woo's heart stopped and restarted. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm sure enough to risk it." He set down his coffee mug, turned to face her fully. "I love you. I should have said it 2 years ago, should have said it before you left the first time. I love you, and I love our children, and I love this life we've built." "I know." Amara's eyes were bright. "I've known for a while. I just needed to be sure you weren't going to disappear when things got hard." "Never." "People say that." "I've had 2 years of hard. Haven't disappeared yet."
She smiled, leaned in, and kissed him. It was soft and careful. A beginning rather than a continuation, and Jin-woo felt like he was being given something precious and fragile that he'd have to earn every single day. He kissed her back with all the gentleness and certainty he could manage, aware of their children playing nearby, aware that this moment was the culmination of 2 years of showing up and trying and choosing right. They pulled apart slowly. Micah had noticed and was staring at them with confused fascination. Zara was oblivious, digging in the dirt with a stick. "Appa kissing Mama?" Micah asked, his pronunciation adorably uncertain. "Yeah, buddy," Jin-woo said. "Is that okay?" Micah considered this with the deep seriousness of a 2-year-old. "Okay." "Well, there you have it," Amara laughed. "Permission granted by the tiny dictator." They sat together on the porch steps, watching their children play, and Jin-woo thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago. That version of himself had been powerful but hollow, successful but empty, in control of everything except what actually mattered. This version, the one who changed diapers and attended parent-teacher meetings and negotiated bedtimes instead of territorial disputes, was better. Harder in some ways, softer in others, but undeniably better. Tae-min called that evening. "Boss, we got the Seattle proposal approved. $40 million investment. They want you to lead the presentation." "When?" "Next month, 3-day trip." Jin-woo looked at Amara, who was giving Micah a bath while Zara napped. "Let me check with Amara about coverage. If she can manage it or if we need to adjust, I'll let you know." There was a pause. The old Jin-woo would never have consulted anyone about business travel. "You're really asking permission?" "I'm asking my partner about logistics. There's a difference." "Yeah," Taemin said, and he could hear the smile in his voice. "There really is. I'm proud of you, boss. Don't get sentimental on me. Too late."
Jin-woo ended the call and joined Amara in the bathroom, where Micah was splashing enthusiastically and creating a minor flood. He knelt beside the tub, rolled up his sleeves, and helped rinse shampoo from his son's hair, while Amara laughed at his technique. "You're getting water everywhere," she said. "Micah's getting water everywhere. I'm just collateral damage." "Sure, blame the 2-year-old." They got both twins clean, dry, and into pajamas through a process that felt like organizing chaos. Story time was Jin-woo reading Goodnight Moon in English while occasionally lapsing into Korean, which made Zara giggle. Bedtime was a production involving night lights and stuffed animals and the specific blanket arrangement that Micah insisted on. When both children were finally asleep, Jin-woo and Amara collapsed on her couch. His duplex unit was still mostly empty, aspirational furniture that never got used, and she leaned against him with the exhausted contentment of another day survived. Taemin called about Seattle. 3-day trip next month. Can we manage that? "We can manage anything," Amara said. "We're a team." "Yeah, we are." She tilted her head up to look at him. "I meant what I said earlier, about trying, about us." "I know. I'm terrified I'll regret it." "That's fair. But I'm more terrified of not trying and always wondering." Jin-woo kissed her forehead. "We'll figure it out. Same way we figured out everything else, one day at a time." They sat in comfortable silence, and Jin-woo thought about the crosswalk where this had all begun, how one moment of recognition had detonated his entire carefully controlled life, how he'd walked away from power and prestige and everything he'd built to claim something he hadn't even known he wanted, how terrifying and impossible and absolutely necessary it had all been. Real change wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a single decision or grand gesture. It was 1,000 small choices compounded over time. It was showing up on Tuesdays and Thursdays even when you were exhausted. It was learning to change diapers and check temperatures and sing lullabies in 2 languages. It was negotiating instead of fighting. It was choosing presence over power. It was loving people enough to become someone better than who you were. Jin-woo had spent most of his life trying to be his father, strong, feared, in control. It had taken 2 tiny humans and 1 exhausted woman to teach him that real strength looked different. Real strength was vulnerability. Real strength was showing up even when you didn't know what you were doing. Real strength was loving people enough to let them change you. "What are you thinking?" Amara asked, her voice drowsy. "That I'm grateful." "For what?" "For you, for them, for getting a second chance I didn't deserve." "You earned it," Amara said, "not by being perfect, by trying. That's all any of us can do." Outside, Vancouver settled into evening. Somewhere in the city, the Baeko clan continued operations under Taemin's capable leadership. Somewhere, Hana was probably planning her next move, her father strategizing how to undermine Jin-woo's business interests. Somewhere, rival organizations were testing boundaries and calculating risks. But in this duplex in Kitsilano, in this moment, none of that mattered as much as the feeling of Amara breathing softly against his chest and the knowledge that down the hall, his children slept peacefully. Jin-woo Park had been a lot of things: son of a crime boss, leader of a powerful organization, feared negotiator, reluctant fiancé, but father, actual present father who knew his children's favorite songs and their different cries and the exact way to hold them when they were upset. That was the identity that mattered most. That was the legacy worth building. Not power or wealth or reputation, but the simple, profound act of showing up for people who needed you and choosing to be better than the example you'd been given. The story could have ended differently. Jin-woo could have walked away that day at the Crosswalk, convinced himself those children weren't his concern, could have sent money and maintained his previous life, could have chosen the easy path of plausible deniability and comfortable distance, but he hadn't. He'd chosen the harder path, the scarier path, the path that required him to become someone he'd never planned to be.
And in becoming that person, someone softer and stronger, vulnerable and certain, present and committed, Jin-woo had found something he hadn't known was missing. Purpose beyond profit, legacy beyond power, love that demanded everything and gave back more. Amara shifted, murmured something indistinct, and Jin-woo adjusted his position so she could sleep more comfortably. He'd stay here for a while, holding her, guarding this fragile new beginning they'd built from the wreckage of their past. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, it always did, but tomorrow he'd face them the way he faced everything now, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one moment of showing up at a time. Because that's what fathers do, that's what partners do, that's what people who love each other do. They try, they fail, they get up and try again. And slowly, impossibly, they build something worth keeping. Jin-woo closed his eyes, listening to Amara breathe and the distant sounds of his children sleeping, and felt something he'd spent 40 years chasing through power and control and carefully constructed dominance. He felt peace. He felt home. And it was enough. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you for listening to Jin-woo's story. If it made you think about your own choices, your own priorities, your own balance between what you want and what you need, then maybe it was worth the journey. Life doesn't wait for us to be ready. Sometimes the most important moments show up in crosswalks and unexpected encounters, forcing us to decide who we want to be. Choose wisely. Choose love. Choose showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because that's where the real story lives, not in the grand gestures, but in the daily choice to try.
Afro Tales. The weak will become strong one day.